This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts. Thank you for joining me in my spirit parlor this evening. I'm Jennifer, your host and resident medium. And tonight, let's discuss two things that get tangled up more than they should. How to tell the difference between a whisper from your intuition and a shout from your anxiety. And once you can hear yourself clearly, how to protect your energy when you're the one who absorbs everyone else's. Intuition and anxiety can feel almost identical, and learning to tell them apart could be one of the more important skills a sensitive person ever develops. Because whether you're a full-blown medium or just someone who cries at other people's weddings for no reason, if you're an empath or a sensitive, we could all use a user's manual. So let's build one together. So how do we know if this is our intuition or if it's just anxiety talking? Also, why do empaths and sensitives tend to run more anxious in the first place? And what to actually do about it? Grounding and protection techniques, practical and repeatable, not vague, just protect your energy advice. I want to talk about all of this tonight, so let's get started. So how to trust your intuition versus anxiety. This is, hand to heart, one of the most requested topics I get. And I understand why, because getting this wrong has real costs in both directions. Ignore a true intuitive hit because you dismissed it as just anxiety, and you might walk into something you should have been able to avoid. But if you treat every anxious signal as a psychic warning, you'll spend your life making fear-based decisions dressed up as spiritual ones. And I want to be really careful here because this isn't a topic where I think there's one clean rule that solves it forever. It took me years of getting it wrong in both directions to even begin to sketch out the difference. So take this all as a starting map. Let's talk about our body signature. This is where it usually starts. Anxiety tends to build gradually or spike suddenly in response to a specific trigger, maybe a thought, a memory, a text notification, and then come in the racing thoughts, spiraling what ifs, rehearsing the worst case scenarios in detail. And it feels like it's happening to you. It can be urgent, loud, hard to think through, and there's often a story attached. An anxiety story keeps growing the longer you sit with it. And anxiety tends to focus on things you can't currently verify or control. The opposite of that, intuition, tends to arrive quickly and completely, just often before a story even forms. It can feel quieter. It could be just this knowing of this isn't right, rather than something very strong and big, like a statement in your mind that says everything is going to fall apart. Can you feel the subtle difference there? Intuition doesn't usually escalate the longer you sit with it. It doesn't need to convince you. Intuition often points towards one specific, simple action, not a spiral of possibilities. and it often arrives with a strange kind of calm, even if the message itself is serious. I'm going to give you the process I use, not because it's the only one, but because it's the one that has held up for me. Ask yourself, does this get louder or quieter when I sit with it? Anxiety almost always gets louder the more attention you give it. It feeds on rehearsal, and intuition tends to settle. If you sit quietly with the feeling for 2 full minutes and it hasn't changed, that's something to note. If it's spun up into 6 new scenarios, that's usually anxiety doing what anxiety does. I also ask myself, is this about something happening now or something that might happen? Intuition tends to be startlingly present tense, a feeling about this person, this room, this decision, right now. Anxiety often lives in the future, conditional, the what if, what could, what might happen. You can also ask yourself, am I being told what to notice or what to do? This one surprises people. In my experience, true intuitive hits are often quite restrained. They tell you to notice something, or to pause, or to ask a question. They don't usually script out an entire dramatic outcome. Anxiety loves to write the whole movie. Also ask yourself, would I trust this feeling in someone else? If a friend told you they had this exact feeling, would you say trust in that? Or would you say, honey, I think you need some sleep? We're often much better at reading the signal in other people than in ourselves. And it can get genuinely nuanced. Here's the honest, complicated truth. Sometimes anxiety is a completely different, reasonable response to a real threat. And sometimes intuition arrives through an anxious body because that's the only channel it has. These categories aren't clean and simple. There is some Venn diagram commonality to them. Anxiety has a long history in your body, from trauma, from an anxious nervous system, from an anxious few years. That doesn't stop being real information just because it's not psychic in nature. Sometimes anxious is the correct response. No metaphysics required. And on the other side, a real true hit from your intuition can absolutely borrow anxiety's clothing. It can feel urgent and physical and hard to sit still with, especially if it's a warning about something serious. Intuition isn't always gentle. So the tools we're talking about aren't a diagnostic test. They're ways of slowing down enough to actually look instead of reacting on autopilot to whichever one is the loudest. I would suggest keeping a small log, even just notes on your phone. Every time you get a strong gut feeling, write down what it was, what it felt like in your body, and later what actually happened. And over the months, you'll start to see your own pattern. Maybe your true hits always show up as a tightness in your throat. Maybe your anxiety always starts with a specific thought loop. You're the only person who can build this map because it's personal. It is absolutely you learning to understand yourself and how your body reacts to life, and also how you react from that intuitive knowing. So that's the real answer. This isn't a set of rules that you learn once. It's a relationship you build with yourself over time, one data point at a time. And that actually leads somewhere important, because if you're an empath or sensitive, here's a piece of the puzzle that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. You are, statistically, more likely to struggle with anxiety. Not because you're broken, because you're receiving more. Think about it this way. Your nervous system is taking in extra information all day long. The mood of a room, the grief someone's carrying and hasn't said a word about it, the tension between two coworkers who think they're hiding it. That's real data, but your analytical brain doesn't always know what to do with that information that it can't necessarily source. It doesn't have a file marked empathic input. So it does what brains do with unexplained internal signals. It reaches for the nearest familiar label, and the nearest familiar label is usually stress, anxiety, or something's wrong with me. So a huge amount of what is getting diagnosed internally as I'm just an anxious person is actually an ungrounded, unmanaged nervous system trying to process a signal it was never taught how to recognize. Which means the fix isn't only calm down. The fix is learning what's actually yours, what's extra, and how to manage the extra, how to manage yourself, so your nervous system stops mistaking information for emergency all the time. That's what we're doing next. Grounding techniques to help you understand your own energy and to manage what's extra, and the protection techniques to guard and protect what you have as a being. So first, let's talk about naming the problem. You've already known the symptoms even if you didn't have a word for it. You leave a party exhausted, not because anything happened to you necessarily, but because you were absorbing everything happening around you. Like the scenario, you sit next to someone on a train and suddenly feel a wave of sadness that isn't yours. You could walk into a house and know instantly whether it's a happy home or a sad one, or an anxious or an angry one. So let's take that extra signal we just talked about and actually do something with it. The goal here isn't to stop feeling. You're not trying to shut off the sensitivity, and honestly, I don't think you could if you tried. The goal is to stop absorbing indiscriminately and to give your nervous system a way to sort what's real information from what's noise, so it stops filing everything under emergency. You can't protect a house with no foundation, so grounding comes first. Here's technique number 1. You may be familiar with it, but you may not be applying it in this sense. This is a root visualization. Feet flat on the floor, and picture roots extending from the soles of your feet down through the floor, through the foundation of the building, into the earth. Not fast, slow, like time-lapse footage of a tree growing. When your roots reach the earth's core, imagine them anchoring there. This isn't about escaping your body, it's about arriving in it fully, because a body that's fully occupied is much harder for the outside world energy to move into uninvited. Second technique is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding drop. This one's borrowed from trauma-informed therapy work, and it belongs in every sensitive's toolkit. Take a deep breath and take a moment to note 5 things you can see, 4 that you can touch, 3 that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. This practice interrupts the free-floating, ungrounded state where you're most porous to outside energy. Here's technique number 3, a cold water reset. Splash cold water on your wrists or tap it on the back of your neck. This does double duty. Psychologically, it calms the nervous system, and energetically, in a lot of folk practice, moving water is considered a natural conductor and cleanser. You don't have to pick a lane as to why this works, just that it does. Next, let's talk about shielding. Once you're grounded, you can protect. There's often the egg of light, classic for a reason. Visualize a shell of light around your entire body and arm's length out in every direction, above your head, below your feet, all the way around. Some people like a white light. Some prefer a color that feels protective to them, a deep blue, violet, even black, which in a lot of traditions represents absorption and protection rather than negativity. The key detail that some people skip: give this shell of light a function. Tell it silently or aloud what it does. This lets love in and keeps drain out. This lets truth in and keeps noise out. A shield without instructions is just a wall. There's a different technique you can try. It's called the doorway pause. Before you enter any space, a party, a hospital, a family gathering, pause at the threshold for 3 seconds. Set an intention. I am visiting. I'm not merging. It sounds almost too simple to work, but try it and see if that one is for you. Another technique for protection is salt, smoke, or sound. The old standbys are old for a reason. A line of salt at a doorway, smoke from a bundle of herbs, such as rosemary, cedar, juniper, lavender. Smoke moved around the perimeter of a room, not to make it smell nice, but to physically move out stagnant air, which is often where stagnant energy sits. There's also sound. A bell, a bowl, even clapping in the corners of a room breaks up stuck energy the way sound waves break up structures in physics. You don't need all of these every time. Pick the one that matches the situation. And remember that protection just isn't about prevention. It's also cleanup. If you've absorbed something, and you will because you're human, not a fortress, here's how you release it. You can shake it off. Literally, animals do this after a stressful encounter. A dog will shake its whole body after a vet visit. I've seen ducks shaking their body to relieve some stress. Shaking discharges stress hormones physically. So try standing up, shaking out your hands, your arms, your legs, even your whole torso for 30 seconds. It feels silly, but it works. You can also try a salt bath or a foot soak, Epsom salt, warm water, 10 minutes. This is a closing ritual, the signal to your nervous system and, if you want to frame it that way, your energy field that the situation or the day is over. None of this is about becoming impenetrable. Sensitives who try to wall themselves off completely usually end up numb, not protected. And numb isn't safe. The goal is a permeable membrane that you can control. So, when you're not sure if it's fear or foresight talking, get quiet and ask yourself which one is trying to convince you and which one already knows. Practice grounding techniques first, shielding second, and clean up after that. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion with me tonight in the Spirit Parlor. If this is something that you struggle with discerning, or if you have figured out personal techniques of your own over the years, I would love to discuss both of them. So leave a comment where you can. I will also outline some of these details as lovely illustrated printables that you can download by visiting my Patreon at patreon.com/italktoghosts. As always, these little note offerings for your journal or your phone, they're all available, every single one of them, for just $1 a month. Thank you again. Trust in your intuition, calm your anxiety, be your own source of sanctuary and wisdom. Take care.